podcast. Happy Friday morning, everyone, technically. The Cowboys lose 44-30 to Detroit. I want to get this out of the way here, Sod. I can tell you, according to the Athletic Playoff Simulator, and I know you've spent a lot of time on that, the Lions win is not good for the Cowboys, but if the Cowboys were to go 4-1 down the stretch, win your final four games, combined with the Eagles' loss this Monday to the Chargers, no Jalen Carter in that game, I can work it out so there's over a 50% chance the Cowboys make the playoffs. I could find a way. How do you feel about that?
No, not great. And the reason why is because, it is, I guess, realistic-ish to assume the Cowboys can run the table because they play the Chargers, the Vikings, the Commanders, and Giants. That's a realistic 4-0 record there. Like, it wouldn't shock people. However, the Cowboys have the third easiest strength of schedule the rest of the way. The team that has the fourth easiest schedule the rest of the way is the Philadelphia Eagles, who still have 2 games against the Commanders. They still play Vegas. They have the Chargers, obviously, on Monday night, and then they play the Buffalo Bills. With where the standings sit right now, yeah, I could see the Cowboys going 4-0. Sure, that's fine. Like, if you want to assume that, and then sure, the Eagles lose, but that doesn't really close the gap enough. You still need further help from the Eagles, and I just don't think you're getting it with that schedule, no matter how discombobulated they look at this point.
Yeah, and when you look at tonight's, when you look at last night's game, technically, to me, the first half, there's a couple things that really jump out to me. The settling for field goals got you a little bit. I think the Jake Ferguson fumble. And then on the next drive, there was a pass interference where George Pickens would have got the Cowboys the ball down at the 1, but it's nullified because Jake Ferguson had a penalty. Those are 2 huge Jake Ferguson plays that really hurt their offensive output in the first half.
Yeah, man, it was not a great game for Jake Ferguson. I know late in the game that call really wasn't his fault. I think that was a bad call by the referees on Jake Ferguson late in the game as well. And to be honest, I don't think it really would have mattered that much because the defense at that point was not going to stop anybody. But to your point, no, I think we've talked all season about the Cowboys having to get out to fast starts. They have to put up points. And the defense was improved. I bought in. A lot of people bought into the defense being improved, and I think understandably so over the last couple of weeks. But it was not great, and the Cowboys could not. They were not in a position where they could play from behind, and that's what they had to do. And look, we all love Brandon Aubrey. We think he's a great player, probably the best player on the team, I would argue. In terms of if you're relative to his position. But you can't settle for field goals as much as they were and make those kind of mistakes. I mean, the Cowboys left so many points on the board or on the field, just in the sense of, like, you look at the Ferguson fumble and then other decisions and mistakes that they made that we'll get into here momentarily. But when you do all that, you just can't be settling for 3 points all the time, and that's what they were doing.
There was another swing moment at the end of the first half. It was 17-9, and that was after there was a play where Dak missed CeeDee Lamb on a deep ball, and then there was a slant to Pickens that got nullified because he grabbed the face mask of Rock Ya-Sin, the cornerback, and they end up going with Brandon Aubrey from 55 yards, and it's good. That made it 17-9, with 50 seconds left in the half. But it would have been like if I'm thinking right, we're looking at, and let me get the game book just so I know, but I think we're talking about a 4th and 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought Shoddy would go for it there. Yeah, it was a 4th and 4 there. And I kind of thought he would go for it. 17-6, 50 seconds left. I understand trying to make it a 1-score game. You're getting the ball out of the half. And I don't know. It just felt like might have maybe been a time you go for it. And at that point, the Cowboys offense, you really could feel them start to get going. They weren't having trouble moving the ball down the field. And that's where I was kind of thinking at the time, oh, maybe you go there. But I mean, I understand the thinking, but it ends up being a swing play because it ends up being net nothing because in those 50 seconds, the Lions were able to take it down and kick a field goal to make it 20-9 at the half.
Yeah, let's spend a little bit of time on this sequence because I think this is where the game was lost, and there are so many different angles to dive into what happened here. Because the first thing is, I'll just continue with what you're saying about going for it on fourth down. For some reason, Brian Schottenheimer does not go for it in these situations unless his back is absolutely against the wall. And it's really frustrating because when you look in the second half, they had a 4th and 5 down in the red zone, and they converted it with the 7-yard pass to Pickens, and that's the play where he fumbled and Tyler Smith recovered. But they went for it on 4th and 5 because they absolutely had to. It was 27-9. You don't have to wait and be so reactive to go for it on fourth downs. We talked about this so much in the aftermath of the Denver game. You have to get ahead of the game and call the game from a place where, you know, you're not out of just desperation. So that's the first thing. But let's look at those 90 seconds as a whole. First of all, Dak Prescott before the game told Jane Slater about how he's going to light up the Lions, and that's the memory from the last game. And I think, you know, we all think the world of Dak. He's fantastic. You can't miss that throw to CeeDee Lamb down the left sideline after you talk that game, after everything that you have, and after the player that you are in the season that you're having. He's having an MVP caliber year. You cannot miss that throw. That's the first thing.
No, it is a pretty rare miss for Dak. He's been super accurate and all that, and overall, thought he played pretty well tonight. You know, and the thing about that is, I didn't have a lot of faith in that 50 seconds, so that the defense was going to get a stop. So making like that felt like a lot of time to be leaving on the clock for Detroit to go get some points, and the idea of keeping it a 1-score game. It's like, well, you better hope your defense gets a stop, which they haven't really done much.
Well, so now here's so just going for it on fourth down is kind of the first element, but the second element is the clock, and that's where I think I'm surprised at how badly Brian Schottenheimer botched that situation in terms of just the clock. It's 4th and 4. After Ferguson goes down, the clock is ticking. Dan Campbell didn't call timeout immediately. Brandon Aubrey came on the field instantly after Ferguson was short. There's no reason, even if you're going to kick a field goal there, for you not to get right back on the line of scrimmage, keep the Lions scrambling right now. Should they call timeout? Should they not? And then at the very least, you have 3 timeouts. Why would you not, on 4th and 4, line up, try to draw the Lions off sides, see what happens there? And then if it doesn't work out, you milk the clock. And look, there's a possibility that Dan Campbell calls timeout before. Although, like I said, he did not call timeout immediately after the 3rd down play. So maybe he lets the clock go. He plays it because now if the Lions do call timeout, they're in this situation in a split second. If you're going no huddle, Dan Campbell has to think about, okay, if I call a timeout here and the Cowboys convert on 4th down, I just gave them a lot more time to work with to get into the end zone. So he has to think about that in a split second. He probably does not call timeout if the offense just gets right back on the ball. You have to take that clock down, and not only take the clock down, but also try to draw them off sides. And then if it doesn't happen, fine. If you do want to play conservative, call a timeout, kick the field goal, and then the Lions don't have time to go down the field and match you with the field goal. But instead of kicking a field goal and then getting the ball to start the second half and trying to double up, they basically kick the field goal, let the Lions match, which, by the way, if Goff throws it inbounds to Tesla on the play right before they kick the field goal, that could have been a touchdown. And then you talk about just a complete disaster of a sequence. Dak Prescott throws an interception on the first play in the second half. So when you got the ball at the end of the first half, you're thinking about trying to double up, and instead it was a wash at the end of the first half and a pick that turned into a Lions touchdown at the start of the second half. And I think that 3-4 minutes right there, that's the whole game. That's the whole game as far as I'm concerned.
While I am riding the signed George Pickens train, I will play the other side just for a second on that sequence, because maybe a part of the thinking that Schottenheimer was dealing with there is we've just overcome a 2nd and 25 to get to a 4th and 4. So let's just kick the field goal because of the face mask that George Pickens, which I don't know that I've ever seen that, catching the slant route while face masking the cornerback with your left arm. Again, another full George Pickens experience, except more bad than good tonight. And then he gives you all the reasons why you don't sign him. There was a couple times where he didn't run routes hard, which we see that a few times a week, to be honest. Like there's a couple times where he doesn't always try his hardest. Just a couple times a game, just not in and out of his breaks. It happens every once in a while. I still want him. I'll pay him for the excitement alone because he's so fun to watch. But that might be part of what Shoddy was thinking there is, geez, it was just 2nd and 25. So let's just kick the field goal and move it on down the road.
Yeah, but two things. If you're Schottenheimer, I understand having that mindset, but we're talking, like I said, we split this conversation into two things. One, go for it on 4th down. But fine, if you're Schottenheimer and you're not going to go for it, at least play the clock. Like that's the least that you could do is play the clock. And then on Pickens, you're right. It was the full experience, man, in one game, and it was a lot of the negative experiences because one, you have that face mask on Pickens that really set the Cowboys back. But then secondly, it's an effort play. Like I get it. He's reaching for the end zone, but you also need to be aware of where you are on that 4th down and just go down. That was not 4th and goal. You got the 1st down. You got it. At that point, just go down and don't hold the ball the way he was to where it could get knocked out. And then specifically on the route, in the second half, I forgot which play it was, but it was that up the left sideline where he was basically jogging when, Kirk Herbstreit, even on the broadcast, kind of was dumbfounded by the way Pickens ran that route. And look, I'm not the biggest Kirk Herbstreit fan, but he's absolutely right on that. When they replayed that, you would have, if you just looked at Pickens running the route, you would have thought he's running off a corner for a run play. You would not think it was a pass play route at all.
Yeah, and I think so. It's 20 after the first interception that you mentioned right out of the second half. It's 27-9 real quick. I should mention the Lions started the entire game, but their average starting field position was at their own 43-yard line. Special teams coverage was awful tonight. And then also I think, a lot of just big plays. I mean, just straight up all night long. Didn't really have an answer for Jamar Gibbs. Didn't have an answer. For Jahmyr Gibbs. Didn't have an answer for Jameson Williams for a good part of the night. Didn't have a good answer for Amon-Ra St. Brown at certain points. There was a lot of Marquise Bell on Jameson Williams. It happened multiple times. And you're looking around going, what? How is that ever an option? And I know also I'm offering him a lot of grace. He's not 100%. He's a rookie. He should get a welcome to the league moment. But the Lions were absolutely picking on Ravel.
Yeah, and I mean, DaRon Bland got picked on a few times as well, including that Jameson Williams deep stop route when the Lions got backed up, it was like 1st and 25, and then Jameson Williams ran a deep stop route on DaRon Bland, and it was not a great game for really anybody in the secondary. But you're right, they were picking on the rookie, and it's just, when the Lions are as limited, not limited, but think about it. Like Amon-Ra St. Brown was hurt. He was a game time decision. The Lions didn't even have Sam Laporta, who is one of the better receiving tight ends in the league. They didn't even have the backup to Sam Laporta. So they were fair. They didn't have Khalif Raymond either as a wide receiver. So even though they have a lot of weapons, and this is why John, I think, has a great case for what he always says, which is like, if they're healthy, top to bottom, the Detroit Lions might have the best roster in the NFL. This was them not even close to healthy. And you're absolutely right. And look, they were kind of bottling up the run at different parts of the game, but then they would let one pop, every so often. The David Montgomery one, before that, they had actually played the run pretty decent. And then Montgomery breaks off a 35-yard run right up the middle and takes it in. So yeah, it was just tough. You know, the other thing that I wanted to really quick talk about is just going back to the coaching conversation. I'm not saying that the Cowboys should have done this, and we can talk about the different officiating things here in a second too if you want to, but when Dak Prescott got called for a safety, then it wasn't a safety and they had to punt the ball. I've seen Bill Belichick do that in the past where you take a safety there because you're gonna 2 points and then you're gonna win the field position battle and you're gonna hope your defense gets a stop. Now, with the way the defense ended up playing, maybe that wouldn't have been the smart decision anyways. But I do wonder if that was even a consideration. If again, if Schottenheimer is thinking that far ahead and trying to play chess when everyone else is maybe playing checkers. Because to be honest, it feels like Dan Campbell does that a lot, and sometimes to a fault. Sometimes it's not smart, but yeah, I think that was just another random thought that I had as well.
Yeah, I think early on in the game, though, you're hoping in a dome, you're hoping, take your chances that Anger bangs one for, 60 yards or whatever, and you're able to flip the field or whatever. But I didn't really understand. I know they spent a lot of time reviewing it. To me, it looked like a clear safety, but and even the explanation to me, I was like, I would say no. It looks like a safety to me.
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions on the officiating as well, but so it's 27-9, after the first possession of the second half, but then the Cowboys offense gets going. A couple of big plays to CeeDee Lamb. Then you have that 50-50 ball to the end zone, and CeeDee Lamb comes down hard on his shoulder, hits his head on the turf, and he's off to the blue tent, ruled out with a concussion. Kind of thought we were playing a lot of high school football, just throwing up a bunch of 50-50s where we could have been calling some regular plays there. But, whatever. CeeDee Lamb also almost made an incredible catch there. So he leaves the game. They end up scoring, get the Javonte Williams touchdown. So it's 27-16, but it's no CeeDee Lamb now. And you're thinking, okay, we still have a chance to come back, but it's going to be way tougher without Lamb.
Yeah, and it's tough because honestly, I think CeeDee Lamb was on his way to having maybe one of the best games of his career. Yeah. I mean, he was playing that kind of a game. And so that's a really tough blow for them, obviously. But I'll also credit to Dak because he was picking on number 4 for the Lions throughout the day, and that's what you want your veteran quarterback to do. But everything condenses, everything gets smaller when you don't have CeeDee on the field. And again, we saw George Pickens pick up the slack for CeeDee early on in the season when CeeDee was out for a while. But I think that's a lot harder to do mid-game when you have an entire game plan that kind of revolves around both of them being there. If CeeDee misses the next game against the Vikings on Sunday night, the following Sunday night, I think Pickens will look a lot better. I think the offense will flow better than what it did without Lamb the rest of the game. But yeah, I mean, and look, CeeDee has the mini bye week to see if he can recover and get back on the field. But on a side note, like, I'm glad they ruled him out as quickly as they did, because as soon as Lamb landed and he did, the hand thing, you knew that was a concussion, and there was, you just hope they get that right and don't put him in harm's way or anything. But yeah, that was the game changed when CeeDee went out as well. The offense changed.
Yeah, and then they still were trying to run the ball, which you had time to do. So I don't have a problem with that. Just from the naked eye, it does feel like Javonte Williams' burst is, not what it was. So I'm sure we'll have time to talk about running backs in the offseason and stuff like that. 27-16. Then they do get a stop. It's 4th and 5 for the Lions on the Dallas 35, and Dan Campbell goes for a field goal. I was like, what? Who is this man? That is not what Dan Campbell does. 4th and 5 on the Cowboys 35. He kicked a field goal that was blocked by Sam Williams. So the Cowboys are right 27-16, right back in it. They go down, and they have a big play called back because George Pickens had set an illegal screen on 3rd and 19. Just bad acting. Didn't even look good. Didn't look like it was a great job. That's just another bad execution. The clear pick play and the call for Flanoy. And that hurts them. And they end up having to settle for a 63-yard field goal. No worries because Brandon Aubrey's got it though. Although I don't know, felt like felt like usually we've seen him on kicks that look like they would be good from 70.
Yeah.
And so that one's like 63 would have been good from 65.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just cold air.
There was a couple of those, man. His second field goal, second and third one barely squeezed in through the upright too. So maybe he is a little human.
So it's 27-19. You're down going into the fourth quarter. Lions start driving, bunch of penalties. They end up having to settle for a field goal, so it's 30-19. Cowboys get it back. They're sticking to the run a little bit. They're moving the ball. Dak runs for a first down. Then they go max protect, and they end up hitting a Flanoy for a 42-yard touchdown. Jake Ferguson catches the 2-point conversion. It's Detroit 30. It's Dallas 27. It's game on. Let's go, defense. Nut up. But then Tom Kennedy rips a return out to midfield just about to the 40. Is fine. 3rd and 6 for the Lions at their own 45. And then Goff hits Jamison Williams, who is beat Marquise Bell by about 2 yards in coverage. It's a big 30-yard play. Tack on the James Houston roughing the passer. Jahmyr Gibbs scores in a couple plays. 37-27. They just couldn't keep it to a one-score game. Just couldn't get close enough and get a stop when it needed to. And that's the story. I think you could go down and talk about the Jake Ferguson offensive pass interference if we want. I don't want to spend a lot of time on that just because they did decline the penalty. So you could have gone for it on 4th and 3. Went for the field goal to keep it a one-score game, which is probably how Shoddy's going to play these things. And that's where you're at, 37-30. Defense has got to get a stop, and they didn't.
Yeah, and the last thing you said is kind of why I don't really care to talk about that penalty that much, because to me, even if you score a field goal or even if you score a touchdown and it's a 3-point game, at that point, you still need a stop. You still, at best, you need them to limit them to a field goal to keep it that. But the Lions scored on the next drive in 3 plays after Kennedy again got it all the way to midfield for a 42-yard return. And then after that, Jahmyr Gibbs had a short run, and then Amon-Ra St. Brown for 37 yards, and then Gibbs for 13 yards for a touchdown. So, yeah, I mean, if they limited that to a field goal, then even that 4th and 3 conversation, the whole conversation with Ferguson's penalty, I think it becomes a little bit more of a talking point, because you're like, well, I mean, if they held them to a field goal there and it just became a 10-point game again, then I think we're talking a lot more about that decision to not go for it on 4th and 3 of like, why would you not go for it and try to make it a touchdown so that when your defense does limit them to a field goal, now you just have to go down, score a touchdown, and win the game. But because the defense was so bad and they scored a touchdown, even if the Cowboys scored a touchdown and made it a 3-point game, it was just going to go right back up to a 10-point game with a touchdown. So I don't want to let Schottenheimer necessarily off the hook there. I do think he should have probably went for it on 4th and 3, because, again, at that point in the game, as the head coach, not just the play caller, he's not the offense coordinator, play caller, you're the head coach, you have to have a feel for where the game is going. And you have to have a feel for the fact that your defense has not been able to stop a nosebleed. So in total, it was 6 out of 7 the last 6 out of the last 7 drives for the Lions ended in scores, and the only one that didn't was a blocked field goal. So the defense did not stop anybody for the last 7 drives. So they probably should have went for it on 4th and 3, but it kind of became a moot point.
Yeah, no, for sure. And there's a couple things here on the penalty thing. I will say, you and people who have listened to our show know that we don't get too much into that type of stuff. We're not blaming the game on the refs type of people. Lions had 8 penalties. Cowboys had 7 penalties. There was a play also, where the Cowboys were offsides, and the Lions threw thinking it's a deep ball and it's incomplete. And it's like, well, it should have been offsides on James Houston or Sam Williams, whoever it was.
Yeah. And also that safety, by the way, if the roles were reversed there, and I understand by the rule when you look at it straight down, that they showed at the end, I understand when contact was made, the ball was out. But I'm telling you, if that was Jared Goff and that happened and the Cowboys lost the game, Cowboys fans will be flipping out.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, even the straight down the line camera view though on that, Like the call on the field was safety. And to me, even the straight down the line, I was still not clear on that. I was still sitting there going, I don't think that's enough to overturn it.
Yeah, same.
That's just me. One stat that jumped out to me too, Sod, that I think is like kind of important. Third down efficiency. The Cowboys were 6 of 15 on third down for 40%. The Lions were 37% on third down efficiency, but they were 3 of 8. They didn't have to get to third. They didn't have to get to third down that often. They were doing a lot of damage before it got to third down as well. And this is like, okay, so yes, the defense is improved, but one thing, and we talked about this a little, but we didn't go too deep into this. The wins over the Chiefs and the Eagles are impressive victories. They're huge. There's a reason that they can even dream of the playoffs. I think we all discount the Raiders. The thing is, the Chiefs and the Eagles right now are not playing like high-powered offenses. They're playing like offenses who are struggling to get to 20 points a game. And the Lions, even with their injuries, I mean, even given, and they're the most injured team in the league for the second year in the row, pretty much. Even throughout with their injuries, the Lions have not had trouble scoring outside of that one Eagles game. So, like, they're putting up points, and that's where I kind of go, okay, how much of that was your opponent's kind of in a funk? Because I still think your situation on the back end is not good. I was so worried about linebackers and the safety play in this game. The Lions attack the middle of the field. Jamison Williams is so fast, and Jahmyr Gibbs is such a threat. And that's where, like, I was just going, like, I don't know, this is going to expose some of the guys we have right now. And it's kind of what happened. Still think the Cowboys have a decent chance to go run the table. I really do. I think with the offense, assuming CeeDee Lamb's concussion is a 1 week thing and he's back, I do think it's right there for you, and you can still get a crack at this. But I was still never buying the whole, hey, the defense is fixed. Like, I just think it's a little bit different than that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is. And we talked a lot about the run defense, and we said how this was going to be the game that gets tested. But it's kind of crazy. Like, this is a running team, and Jared Goff threw the ball 34 times. They had, as a team, 22 rushing attempts, and that includes 2 by Jared Goff, 1 by Malik Cunningham, and 1 by Jamison Williams. Between Gibbs and Montgomery, they only had 18 total rushing attempts, dude. I think one thing that the Lions do really well is they know how to use the passing game as part of their running game, and we saw that a lot with Gibbs, whether it's the swing passes and all the short passes and stuff. But what we talked about, and to me, this is a little bit of a positive. We talked about teams not even trying to run the ball on the Cowboys. Mm-hmm. And I think the Lions kind of got in that category because, look, David Montgomery had a 35-yard touchdown run. Okay, so his total stat line for the day was 6 carries for 60 yards. If you minus the 1 explosive 35-yarder, he had 5 carries for 25 yards. 5 yards a carry, not great, whatever. Jahmyr Gibbs, though, and I think he's one of the elite running backs in the NFL, 12 carries for 43 yards. 3 touchdowns, but, goal line touchdowns, whatever. But 12 for 43, including a 19-yard touchdown run. A 19-yard run. Mm-hmm. If you take away the 19-yard run, he averaged 2 yards a carry, 11 carries for 24 yards. They contained the run fairly decently, and the Lions didn't even try to run on them, kind of what we were talking about. That's one, I guess, silver lining. That's a pattern that's kind of held up ever since Quinnen Williams was acquired at the trade deadline. Now, again, when they needed to get the runs late in the game, when Jahmyr Gibbs had to get those touchdown runs, he did, and they did pop out a couple of big runs. But I think overall, for how bad the run defense has been, I thought it was an overall decent effort, but situationally, again, like I said, late in the game, they got the runs that they needed, but I don't know if you felt the same way watching it.
No, I did. And that's the thing that makes the Lions very tough is you can think you've got to read on, with David Montgomery's in the game, so they're going to just start running it. And it's just not like that. They thrive off the play action and all that stuff. The thing about, I think all this though, to me, like there's a lot of things going on, and it's because good vibes, right? Good vibes, couple big wins, but it's still like, okay. And I'm guilty of this. Dude, I was trying to talk up Eberflus a little bit earlier in the week. So I mean, I'm not like, but it's like, you go play a good team like Detroit in their house on Thursday night, who's frankly consistently been a better team than you have this year. Kind of what'd you think was going to happen? And I don't know on the picks. I know we were feeling pretty good about it, but maybe it's different. Maybe they're able to get it going if CD doesn't get hurt and the offense is still pumping and you're still getting 7 each drive. Maybe it's a different story there, but it's just that type of thing where, man, you just can't have the mistakes that they made. The penalties they had, 2 on George Pickens were huge. 1 on Jake Ferguson plus the fumble, just huge game-losing plays. And you had way more of those types of plays than Detroit did. And there you go.
And I think we can criticize the Cowboys, and I think it's all fair game. You're absolutely right about the penalties. For me, this was a tough look. This was a tough outing for Brian Schottenheimer as a head coach, just because, like I said, just the way that the end of half was botched was really a tough look. And then Dak didn't have his best game either. So there was that, and I think the CD Lamb thing does impact that greatly. But on the flip side, I also think that you have to give the Lions a lot of credit, man. Like, we talked about that play that Jameson Williams made over Marquise Bell. That was one. Amon-Ra St. Brown late in the game on the last drive when they needed to have it. They got it from Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think that was like a 37-yard play or something late in the game. And so when they needed that, it was on 2nd and 9. He went for 37 yards. And by the way, just real quick note on that, just because I've been kind of talking about head coach and Schottenheimer a bit. I don't think that was a bad challenge by Schottenheimer. I think that was a good challenge because you were going to use a timeout anyways.
Yep.
So you might as well challenge just to see, because you're going to use a timeout in that situation. And it was close enough to where just throw the challenge flag. If you lose a challenge, you're going to use the timeout that you were going to use anyway. So I don't blame him for that one. That was a good challenge.
I thought that was a really good heads up. Obviously it's a challenge that you can't make if that's under 2 minutes, but right there, it's
that was his first challenge of the season.
What?
Yeah, first Schottenheimer challenge of the season.
That's insane. We're week 14, man. Dude. What?
Yeah.
Has any other coach? That's got to be.
There's 5 teams. Last I checked, I think if we keep talking, I'll probably get it pulled up real quick. But last I checked, there were 5 teams that had not used any challenges, and Schottenheimer and the Cowboys were one.
That sounds insane to me, dude. What in the world? Okay, so
here we go. I got it.
2025 challenges.
Yeah, the Bills, Steelers, and Cardinals are the only other 3 teams that have not challenged.
Man, I guess, I mean, well, you know what? It's, even though he lost the challenge, let's hope that we all remember Shotty's first challenge as a good one. Because one of those nothing to lose type challenges. And honestly, I thought, watching it live, I was like, yeah, he's out of bounds. What's the ref doing winding the clock? But then you see it on the replay.
Yeah.
Well, Saad didn't get the result the Cowboys fans wanted there, but again, I'm going to go back and re-reference the stat or the the simulation from earlier from the Athletic Playoff Simulator. An Eagles loss on Monday, combined with running the table, still gives you like over 50% chance to get in the playoffs. So we'll look at that.
I think at this point though, you're really hoping for like. I don't know. Like, I think this is a conversation we'll have Tuesday in studio at the Haymaker Studios. But I don't know. Before this game, I was pretty firm on like your best path in is through the division, and the division just feels so far-fetched at this point. Again, an Eagles loss can change that. And by the way, Jaden Daniels, full practice this week. I think on yesterday, he had I think he was a full participant. So the Eagles have 2 games left against the Commanders. I don't know. I mean, the Cowboys have a game left against the Commanders as well. Is Jaden Daniels playing? Are the Commanders any good even if he is playing? There's different factors there, but you need more than just the Eagles losing to the Chargers. Now, you can count on them maybe losing to the Bills, but then you have to run the table, and I still think you need some help from the Commanders and the Raiders, and that's a tough spot to be in when you're asking for help from the Raiders and the Commanders.
No doubt. No doubt. Absolutely. Now you're looking at the bigger picture. Maybe the Eagles full on collapse, which I don't know that that's going to happen.
Well, because look, okay, so the Eagles are 8-4.
About that, but
yeah, the Eagles are 8-4. You say they lose 2 games to the Chargers and the Bills, and then they win against the Commanders both games, and the game against the Raiders. They finished with 6 losses. That's what, 11-6, right? Yeah. 11-6, and if you run the table, you're 10-6-1. So you need to run the table, and you need 3 Eagles losses in the last 5 games, which, again, if they lose to the Chargers and they lose to the Bills, and then you're talking yourself into, can the Commanders split? maybe there's something there, but it's not only is it on the Eagles to do that, but then it's also, you also have to run the table. And I think they can beat the Vikings, Commanders, and Giants, but the Chargers game could be a tough one for the Cowboys. And then the other, just real quick, if you're looking at the wild card, that's really tough. With the tie against the Packers, you're really not even talking about tiebreakers. You have to leapfrog teams, and the 49ers are on a bye, and then they play the Tennessee Titans after that. So you can chalk it up to them being at 10 wins, and that's just really tough. And they're the 7th seed right now. So
the week 14 bye, I said this the other day, the week 14 bye bugs the crap out of me. We're in December. Terrible. No one should be getting a bye.
Yeah. But anyways, right. That's a quick look at the playoff picture, which I think will be smarter for us to examine deeper on Tuesday after all the week 14 action is in the books.
Yeah, we'll have another episode out Tuesday or Wednesday. We'll see when it'll drop sometime next week. If you this is still the audio version, obviously, but the video version of the podcast. That'll be, our midweek podcast. And we've partnered up with the Haymaker Network for some video action there. So go check that out on YouTube if you'd like to see our faces and all that stuff. That's great. And we'll be making improvements to that as we move along, clearly. But really excited to be partnered up with the Haymaker Network. You can go check them out on YouTube, follow them on social media, because you can see short clips from our podcast as well as our full podcast in video form in the midweek version. We will be back with John Machota, of course, later in the week, getting you ready for Sunday night Vikings-Cowboys. Can't flex out of a Cowboy game. Not going to do that. So Vikings-Cowboys next week. So make sure you're following Sod and John all week long at The Athletic. Sure, they got tons of stuff throughout the long weekend as well, because now the Cowboys have a long week before they're back in action. Follow Kent Garrison in the Mad About Movies podcast. Good stuff happening over there. I'm Kevin KT Turner, and I want to say go Mean Green tonight against Tulane. Sod, I know you're feeling this right now. The American Athletic Conference Championship game. Winner gets into the college football playoff. Go Mean Green. I pulled this up. The 5 years that I was in college there, they won 2, 5, 6. I pulled this up and tweeted earlier. A total of, I had this earlier. Hold on. I'm going to pull it up here. The 5 years I was in college there, 5, 6, 8, 11 wins. And that would be 49 losses. 11-49 in my 5 years of college there. And I'll tell you, that's about 3 years worth of me doing the Green Guys pregame show and things like that previewing games when the team's about to get their ass kicked. So, I got my chops.
I just looked. I had 19 wins during my time at UNT, and one bowl win, Heart of Dallas Bowl.
Yes.
And
New Year's Day, 2013.
Yeah. Yes. And
Dude,
then
awesome.
one bowl loss.
Wait, what were your years there?
2013 to 16.
2013 to 16. So you were there for the 1-11 season.
Yes, I was.
Yeah, but you had a good 9-win season, and yeah, that's all right. I remember the 2013. What is it? The Heart of Dallas Bowl.
Yes.
I had to do. I was doing fill-in work at the Fan at the time, and I did 6 to 10 a.m. that morning, and then went out to the Cotton Bowl. And I have narcolepsy too, so pretty much just kind of falling asleep during that 4-hour game. But it was fun. I was reading up some old buddies. For anyone out there that says North Texas and teams like North Texas should not be in the college football playoff, then why are SEC teams and Big 12 teams hiring their coaches and recruiting the players from the American Athletic Conference? And I'll also say we've been through it, especially me. 11-49 or whatever that record I threw out there. That's bad.
Yeah, that's tough.
That's really bad. And I'm telling you, supported all of it. Not saying I went to every game. I absolutely didn't. But through the years, I watch UNT every single Saturday on a small screen, usually with ESPN Plus.
Yeah, I don't think I watch UNT, but I'm always rooting for them from the sideline, of course. First 11 win season ever. That's awesome.
Yes, and it'll be fun tonight against Tulane. So, whatever happens, Tulane beats them, good. May the best team win and get in. Come on. So, go Mean Green. I can't tell you how excited I am for that, even though the Cowboys lost. I'm bummed by that. I was digging the vibes. I like the idea of running the table. Even Herbie, during the game on Amazon, I was listening. He goes, I tell you what, if the Cowboys can make a comeback here, they're going to go on a run. And he was saying they're Super Bowl contenders, just like that. And I'm like, yeah, it's easy to feel that way because the last 2 wins have been really fun. And that was something. Got to rebound, though.
Yeah.
So, okay. For Sod and John, good dudes. We'll see you next week where we will have a video version of the podcast out on the Haymaker Network as well. And for Kent Garrison, I'm Kevin Turner. We'll see you next time on the One Star Cowboys podcast.
I don't have time to have a bad time. It ain't on my schedule.